Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light and this is my channel. Hello everybody. I'm glad to be back. And I am specifically glad to be back because I want to tell this story. Before I get started, if you would please subscribe and like this video. It really helps in the YouTube algorithm and that helps my channel. Also, we are still in the process of doing a giveaway. And if you heard my podcast with Rob, you know that I had 40 subscribers taken away. So we're not quite to 3,000, but it will get here quickly. And I just need to send this out. I, I might have to do it a little bit early. I'm just saying. Um, all right. So let's get into this story. All right. So my husband and I had this group of friends, several of them, and we all had children pretty close to the same age. Ours were probably, you know, 10 and 11, my daughters, and the age range was probably about from 13 to 7, I guess. And we had these friends that had this really, really large lake home and a guest house. And they invited us to come out very close to Christmas so that we could have a gift exchange and kind of celebrate a friend's Christmas thing like people do with Friendsgiving. So we went out to their house and it was, let's see, about 10 adults, husbands, wives, and then all of our kids. There was a lot of kids. People's we had some people had 4 kids, some people had 2 kids. No, I don't think anybody had just one. So there was a lot of kids, and it was you know, pretty loud. And we were drinking hot toddies and some mulled wine and just having a great time. The kids were playing outside, and the adults were having great conversation. We had broken out some board games, and then as the night went on, we decided, it was time to put the kids to bed because on our friend's Christmas, the next morning was going to be the day that Santa came. That night was going to be the day that Santa came, and then they were going to wake up with their toys. So we had told them this, and we were going to do breakfast in the morning and have that all ready when the kids came down. And it was, it was really exciting, fun day planned. So we had each adult and their spouse had rooms, and then there was a guest room, the guest house that could be used. But the kids decided that they would rather all sleep together in the living room, so the moms went to the kid-sized beds, like the twin beds, and took down some. We all brought down the mattresses and put them on the floor, and then we put a sheet. We divided them. One half was about the size of a king size bed. The other half was pretty close to the size of a queen size bed, which worked out great for the sheets. And then um, the husband of the friend that we were staying there, his name was Christopher. He went out and got a bunch of sleeping bags out of their RV. So they're big campers, and we just put pillows and sleeping bags and blankets all over this huge bed and let the kids, get all snuggled in. And we turned a Christmas movie on for them, and they just were pretty close to sleep pretty quickly because they've been running around all day and were really exhausted. Well, while we were doing that, the men folk had been on the back patio and had started a fire and brought some chairs and put them around the circle of the fire, and they brought out a keg of beer and some wine, and it was going to be like parents' night now. Even though we'd been drinking a little bit, it hadn't been very heavy, and we were still weren't going to drink very heavy, but it was there if you wanted to. So we got around, we started talking, and we were just talking about the day and how excited the kids were for Santa. And some of us were talking, me in particular, that I hadn't been raised being allowed to believe in Santa. In my house, Christmas was a purely religious holiday. And I mean, as we've talked about here, as I got older, I realized, more and more about the traditions that we have for Christmas. They were taken from pagan holidays and whatnot, but it didn't really matter in my house. And it just wasn't brought up. There was no Santa. So we got to talking about that, and other families there, they had been raised the same way. And so we were wondering, like, would it have been better to have been raised with Santa? I missed the magic of Santa. I saw that other kids, were so excited for Santa to come, and they couldn't get to sleep at night because Santa was coming. And I just had wished kind of that I'd had a little bit of that magic, growing up. Some people had been raised with strictly Santa, and now they were more religious and wished that it had been more held a religious holiday and whatever. And then, so we're talking about that, and out of the corner of my eye, I see one of our friends, Alan. He's married to a good friend of mine, Stacy, and he's seeming really quiet and kind of withdrawn, and that's not his personality. He's really loud and funny, and that guy at the party that's the center of attention kind of a thing. And I wasn't the only one who noticed it. My other friend Camille, her husband John, asked Alan what was going on. And at first Alan was like, oh, it's nothing, just thinking, it's no big deal. But you could tell that there was something wrong. So John kind of pushed him a little bit, and he was saying that when he grew up, there was a Santa and it was a religious holiday. And that in their house, the angel on the tree, the angel's job was to light the way for Santa to find their house, which I thought was kind of a neat way to mix it up. But he said that when he became around 8 years old, that he really started feeling like when you sing Santa Claus, he knows what you are doing, he knows when you're awake, he knows when you're sleeping, and he knows if you've been bad or good. And he said that really started giving him some OCD type behavior, maybe paranoia kind of a feeling, and it really weighed on him to the point where he became really anxious, started having panic attacks when it would become close to Christmas. So at 9 years old, his parents decided that they were going to tell him that Santa isn't real. That doesn't happen. There's nobody watching him. And they told him. And he said that it made things worse for him. That then he had some trust issues. That his parents had been what he considered lying to him for all this time with this particular lie that was supposed to make him behave. Anyway, they took him to a therapist, and he was put on some medication. After that, he started questioning them about whether God was real, because God was used in the same manner. He knows what you're doing. Not only does he know what you're doing, he knows what you're thinking. And he started having even worse OCD and anxiety. And he began to tell us that didn't go away, that he was still struggling with that part of religion, and in particular, Christianity and feeling all the time that he wasn't good enough, and that he was really afraid that anything he did would be considered wrong or bad. And so one day it got to the point where he was parked at this crosswalk, and there was a mom and a dad and a baby in a stroller crossing in front of his car, and he had this. At first, he thought it was like a passing thought that he should let let go of the brakes and push the gas and run over them and see if God could see that. And then he couldn't cycle that out. And it got to the point where he thought, I wonder if I'm thinking about this, God knows I'm going to do it. He knows everything I'm doing. Will he stop me? Will something happen to my car? Will they, suddenly move quicker out of the way of my car? And he went to put his foot on the gas pedal. And then he thought better of it. But he said that he still has those kinds of thoughts. So he had gotten back to a therapist and had just recently been put on medication. And he was, by this point in the story, he was just a wreck. And he was sobbing, just his whole body was sobbing. He had taken his glasses off. Tears were just flowing out of his eyes. His wife, Stacy, was, had her arms around him. And it really struck me because I was thinking about my own children. And I guess I'd always thought that kids got to the age where they just knew Santa wasn't Santa and the Tooth Fairy wasn't the Tooth Fairy, and they just moved on. I never thought about it being particularly traumatic and them thinking that their parents had deceived them, that they couldn't trust them. And I was really kind of questioning if what we were doing was the right thing. It looked like everybody was in that particular place. We all talked for a few more minutes, but by then it was just dark, and there was this elephant in the room, and we decided to go to bed. And we decided that Alan and Stacy should go ahead and have the guest house, because I don't know, we just didn't feel like he'd want to be in the rest of the house with everybody, and maybe he needed some time alone. So him and his wife went to the guest house, and their kids, stayed in the house on the big kid bed, and we all went to sleep. The adults had agreed to start coming down early in the morning to try and beat the kids awake so we could get some of the breakfast at least started, so they weren't hanging around waiting and impatient to open their presents. So my husband went down, and about 10 minutes later, I went down, and John was in the kitchen, and Camille was in the kitchen, and a couple of our other friends, and I heard a loud bang against the back glass door. They were getting coffee ready and setting some pastries out and getting some hot chocolate and all that stuff. So I walked over to the back door, and I saw on the bottom part of it that there was like a blood smear, which was concerning, of course, but my first thought was that it had to have been one of their animals. But still, that's concerning. So I opened the door, and on his hands and knees, almost to the point of lying down, there was Alan, and he had pajamas on, and I couldn't tell what color they were because he was just soaked in blood. And his hands were covered in blood, and he was letting out this cry that it sounded almost animalistic. And by then, the other adults in the kitchen had come running to the door, and John bent down and said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" It 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 hadn't occurred to me. I don't know. I really don't know what I thought, but it hadn't occurred to me that he was injured because there was just, I don't know how to explain it. So much blood. I didn't know how that was possible. And so John said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And started like trying to look over him, but he was such a mess that you couldn't even see if there was a wound or if his pajamas had been ripped. He just, in his eyes, I, I don't know how to explain it. His eyes were wild. They were making contact with our eyes, but not like he knew who we were, you know? Just that just that he was making eye contact. He didn't look at us like we were friends. He didn't look at us like he knew us. He just looked like a scared animal. And I looked past him and I saw that there was footprints and on the patio and blood drops, blood splatters. And I was looking at those and trying to understand what had happened and wondering where Stacy was, if she had already come in the house. And that's when I heard Alan scream out, "He won't stop you. God won't stop you." And I looked at him, and I realized right then what had happened. And I started to run towards the guest house, and I heard John yell, "You killed Stacy?" Thank you for coming to my channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Good night.